The xenobiology research station orbiting Keth-7 had seen its share of dangerous specimens, but nothing had prepared the crew for the chaos that a single frightened cub could unleash. Tira, a juvenile Catharian predator barely 3 months old, had been rescued from a collapsed den after a seismic event devastated her home colony. The scientists aboard the station had good intentions: preserve the endangered species, study their remarkable neural adaptations, provide medical care. But good intentions meant little to a terrified child separated from everything she had ever known. The observation deck had become a war zone. Dr. Velthrix, the station's Arcturian chief xenobiologist, pressed himself against the reinforced viewing glass, his 3 eyes wide with concern. Inside the containment habitat, Tira was a blur of midnight blue fur and flashing claws, her piercing shrieks echoing through the station's corridors. Equipment lay shattered across the floor. The habitat's environmental systems sparked and hissed where her desperate attacks had torn through conduits. Sedation attempt number 7 has failed, reported Lieutenant Koresh, her crystalline fingers dancing across the medical console. Her metabolism is burning through the tranquilizers faster than we can administer them. If we increase the dosage any further, we risk permanent neurological damage. We can't let her continue like this, Dr. Velthrix said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard galactic common. She's going to hurt herself. The stress hormones alone could trigger cardiac failure in a cub this young. Mason Reed stood at the back of the observation deck, watching the scene unfold with growing unease. He was just a maintenance technician, hired 6 months ago to keep the station's environmental systems running. He wasn't a xenobiologist or a veterinarian. He fixed air recyclers and patched hull breaches. But something about the cub's desperate cries tugged at something deep in his memory. Has anyone tried just sitting with her? Mason asked quietly. The observation deck fell silent. A dozen alien faces turned toward him, expressing various degrees of confusion through their wildly different anatomical features. Sitting with her? Dr. Velthrix's translator conveyed his incredulity perfectly. Human Reed, that creature is a Class 4 predator. Even as a juvenile, she possesses sufficient strength to tear through reinforced steel plating. Her species has a documented aggression index of 9.7 out of 10. Proximity would be fatal. Maybe, Mason said, stepping forward. But she's not attacking because she's aggressive. She's attacking because she's scared. Your species' tendency toward anthropomorphization is well documented. Human Reed, but I assure you, I grew up on a colony world, Mason interrupted, surprising himself with his boldness. We had barn cats, feral ones sometimes. They'd get trapped in the equipment sheds and they'd tear the place apart trying to escape. My father taught me something. He paused, watching Tira hurl herself against the habitat wall once more, her small body shaking with exhaustion and terror. Sometimes scared things don't need less space. They need a smaller space where they feel protected. The concept seemed to baffle the assembled scientists. The Arcturians had evolved from hive organisms that found comfort in openness and connection. The Quillith delegation had originated in vast oceanic environments where confinement meant death. To them, Mason's logic was incomprehensible, but Mason was already moving toward the habitat's service entrance. Human Reed, I cannot authorize. Then don't, Mason said simply. He grabbed an emergency supply kit from the wall and pulled out the contents, leaving the items scattered across the deck. Then he folded the cardboard box flat and tucked it under his arm. I'm just going to fix some environmental controls, in case anyone asks. He entered through the maintenance airlock before anyone could stop him. The habitat fell silent the moment Mason stepped inside. Tira backed into the farthest corner, her lips pulled back to reveal rows of crystalline teeth designed to shear through bone. Her eyes, 3 of them arranged in a triangle across her face, locked onto him with predatory intensity. A low growl rumbled from her chest, a sound that Mason felt in his sternum. Easy there, Mason said softly, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He didn't make eye contact, remembering his father's lessons about frightened animals. Nobody's going to hurt you. He sat down cross-legged in the middle of the habitat, making himself as small and non-threatening as possible. Then with careful movements he began reassembling the cardboard box. The sound of folding cardboard echoed in the suddenly quiet space, a mundane, ordinary sound in a place of fear and chaos. Tira's growling faltered. Her ears, Delicate membrane structures that fluttered at the sides of her head perked forward. Curiosity, Mason recognized, the universal constant that transcended species. He finished assembling the box and set it down beside him. Then he simply waited. Minutes passed. Mason's legs started to cramp, but he didn't move. On the observation deck, he could see the assembled scientists watching with intense focus, their various appendages poised over emergency protocols. Tira took a tentative step forward, then another. Her approach was hesitant, accompanied by soft chirping sounds that Mason's translator couldn't parse. Probably vocalizations too young to have developed into proper language. When she was close enough, she extended her neck and sniffed at the cardboard box. Her nostrils, slits along her muzzle, flared wide. Then in a movement so quick Mason barely tracked it, she dove inside. The box wasn't large. It would have been cramped for a human toddler, but Tira curled up inside it, her body compressed into the smallest space possible. And for the first time since she'd arrived on the station, she fell silent. Mason carefully reached out and folded the box's flaps down, leaving them open enough for air and light but creating the illusion of enclosure, of safety, of a den. From inside the box came a sound Mason had never heard before, a soft, rhythmic thrumming that his translator identified as a Catharian purr. Dr. Velthrix's voice crackled through the habitat's comm system. "Human Reed, how did you know?" Mason stood slowly, his legs protesting, and made his way toward the airlock. "Because sometimes," he said, looking back at the cardboard box with its precious cargo, "the scariest thing isn't being in danger. It's being exposed." She didn't need more space to feel safe. She needed walls close enough to know nothing could hurt her. As he exited the habitat, he heard Lieutenant Karesh speaking rapidly into her console, stress hormones dropping to baseline, cardiac rhythm stabilizing, neural activity indicating rest state. "By the ancestors, it's working." Mason paused in the observation deck, watching through the glass as Tira settled deeper into her cardboard sanctuary. Around him, some of the galaxy's greatest scientific minds struggled to comprehend what they'd just witnessed. "Your species," Dr. Velthrix said slowly, "continues to defy logical categorization, Human Reed." Mason smiled. "We just remember what it's like to be scared. And sometimes that's enough." In the days that followed, the cardboard box remained Tira's safe space. The scientists studied it, analyzed it, wrote papers about the psychological implications of confined space security behaviors. They built elaborate reconstructions of Catharian dens, incorporating the same principles Mason had demonstrated. But Tira never abandoned that first box. Even as she grew, even as she eventually learned to trust the beings around her, she would return to it, now battered and reinforced with scientific modifications, whenever the universe felt too large and too frightening. And Mason Reed, the maintenance technician who understood that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most human ones, became something of a legend among the stars, not for his strength or his technology or his weapons, but for his cardboard box and his willingness to sit with fear until it became comfort. Because that was humanity's gift to the galaxy. The memory of being small and scared, and the wisdom of knowing how to make others feel safe.